The air was thick with unease the first time I spotted that black SUV parked just beyond our family's sprawling Carter ranch. It wasn't just sitting there, it was lurking, like a vulture eyeing a fresh kill. Its tinted windows glinted under the Montana sun, a silent threat staining the rolling fields we'd called home for generations. For days, that vehicle had been a shadow, creeping closer, watching us. It wasn't about property lines or stray cattle. It was about the new Homeowners Association, led by a woman named Vi V. Holt, who decided our way of life was a problem she needed to fix. The trouble started quietly, like a bruise you don't notice until it hurts. The ranch, usually alive with the hum of crickets and the lowing of cattle, fell eerily silent. Grandpa Amos, a man who could read the land like a book, froze mid-swing while fixing a fence post. His hammer hung in the air, and I saw his jaw tighten, a warning sign I'd learned to heed. I was there, passing him nails, while my 12-year-old cousin Sammy fiddled with his drone controller atop a hay bale. "You smell smoke, Grandpa," Sammy whispered, his voice barely cutting through the stillness. Amos lowered his hammer, eyes locked on the SUV. "That ain't smoke, kid," he growled. "That's trouble brewing." Vi V's HOA had been sniffing around for weeks, enforcers in crisp uniforms jotting notes about our grass height or the angle of our barn. We'd opted out of their nonsense years ago, legally and proudly, but that didn't stop them. They called it community standards, but it was just spying with clipboards. 3 days earlier, Amos had spotted that same SUV idling near our livestock gate at dusk. We thought it might be Sheriff's Deputy Luke on patrol, but Amos muttered, "HOA goons," and my stomach sank. They were pushing, testing like coyotes circling a campfire. Then we found "Eat a clean slice" through our old wooden fence, too neat for animals. It was a message, so we're watching. "We're coming for you." Sal. Amos, a retired Marine engineer who'd seen combat in places I'd only read about, wasn't the type to flinch. But when he saw that cut fence, a cold fury settled in his eyes, the kind that made you glad you weren't his enemy. That night, the air around the cattle pit felt heavy, like a storm was gathering. Grandma Clara, always our rock, squeezed my hand. Sammy's drone sat silent on the porch. We all knew the lines were drawn. The next afternoon, Amos vanished into the big gray shed at the edge of the North Pasturia, place off limits unless he said otherwise. That shed held his tools, his metals, and things he never explained, relics of a life where problems got solved with grit and cunning. When he emerged, the sun caught the glint of a can of fire-retardant gel in one hand and a rolled-up map in the other. "We're smoking him out," he said, his voice low but electric, eyes sparking with mischief. Legally, mind you. He spread the map on the kitchen table, tracing burn lines with the precision of a man who'd once taught demolition to soldiers. Every angle, every drift of smoke was planned to perfection. He filed the paperwork, that evening, pages of forms citing weed control and pasture management, all sheriff approved, no loopholes. It was legal, safe, and, if you had Amos's sense of humor, downright hilarious. Dawn broke dry and windy, perfect for what was coming. Sammy's drone buzzed overhead, a watchful eye on the SUV. Through its camera, we saw the HOA enforcer's one scratching his neck, the other shifting nervously, probably wondering why no one else parked nearby. Amos and I lit the burn lines at noon, the drip torch in his hands, moving like he was painting a masterpiece. The flames danced along the property line, controlled but hungry, curling into a perfect circle around the SUV. Vi V's goons didn't realize it, but they were trapped not by fire, but by Amos's genius. He'd run the irrigation overnight, softening just that patch of ground. Their tires spun, sinking into slick mud, engines screaming uselessly. Panic bloomed on their faces as smoke rose, thick and taunting, curling toward their windows. They radioed for help, but none came. Amos had already cleared the burn with a fire marshal. It was on the county calendar, clean as a whistle. Grandma Clara stepped out, sweet tea in hand, binoculars dangling from her neck. "Should we wave?" she asked, smirking. Then came the moment Sammy would replay 1,000 times. Clara pulled out her phone and started streaming. "Hello, Internet," she said, zooming in on the SUV. "Meet the wild HOA cop, cornered and clueless." Within an hour, her feed had 10,000 viewers. Someone added banjo music, and the comments exploded. By evening, the fire had burned out exactly as Amos planned. Not a post singed, not a fence touched. The SUV, though, was still stuck, a monument to their arrogance. Deputy Luke rolled up at sunset, giving the enforcers a lazy wave. "You boys lost," he drawled. They tried to bluster about illegal endangerment, but Luke shut them down. "You're on private land, spying." Lucky Amos here's the peaceful type. Amos just pointed to the clipboard in Luke's hand. "Page 3's the satellite VYEW, he said. Luke whistled. "This fire's cleaner than academy drills." The enforcers slunk away, humiliated, their SUV dented and caked in mud. But VY wasn't done. By morning, a mass email hit the neighborhood, calling Amos's fire a reckless stunt and promising investigations for code violations. They conveniently forgot to mention their trespassing or the burn's legality. 2 hours later, another email proposed expanding HOA boundaries to swallow our ranch. Amos read it, folded it, and tucked it under the wobbly kitchen table leg. That was his answer. He drove to town, dropping off burn permits, photos, and a statement that read like a polite declaration of war at the courthouse, sheriff's office, and zoning department. By dusk, officials confirmed the HOA's expansion was dead without a public vote. Sammy and our cousin Jake, a wiry prankster, got creative. They built a plywood SUV, painted it with flames, and parked it behind the real one with a sign, "Parking lot of shame." Locals drove by, honking and snapping photos. The HOA enforcers, finally freed from the mud, clipped a boundary post as they fled. Amos stepped onto the porch. "That post's older than your bylaws," he called. Luke, eating sunflower seeds across the road, grinned. "You break it, you buy it." VY retaliated with a letter listing 17 violations, from unauthorized flames to fence color inconsistency. Grandma Clara laughed, so hard she spilled syrup. "Visual disruption? Wait till they see my scarecrow in a hat." Amos didn't laugh. He drafted a response, citing laws and precedents, and delivered it to the HOA office with a peach pie and a note, "For your digestion." Soon, 50 neighbors filed complaints, inspired by Clara's VY rail stream. A news crew ran a segment, Rural Fire or HOA Firestorm, featuring Sammy's drone footage and Amos's quip. They tried to corner us. They didn't know how wide a circle we can draw. Then came Tanya, a former HOA staffer who'd quit after uncovering irregularities. She met Amos at the town diner, handing over a folder stuffed with emails and screenshots. One message from VY read, "Make an example of Carter. If he walks, others will resist." Amos handed Tanya cash for gas, not payment, and said, "They'll hear you now." The documents went to the county commissioner, sparking an investigation. Deputy Luke raided the HOA office for surveillance gear. 3 board members quit. VY held a press conference, calling Amos a militant farmer and Tanya a liar. It backfired. Someone projected "militant farmer says hi" onto the HOA building. The final blow came from Judge Harold Vance, a quiet HOA member who posted an open letter demanding an audit. A federal land officer VY cited, thanking Amos for exposing overreach. Neighbors dropped off pies and letters, one about a fine pink birdhouse, another about a hidden flag. At a barn meeting, 40 families shared stories of HOA bullying. VY stormed in, screaming about unsanctioned gatherings, but Luke blocked her. "Private property," he said. She left, ranting, as phones recorded. A USB drive arrived, anonymously, with audio of VY and plotting to overwhelm Carter. "We sent transparency packets to every neighbor, exposing her schemes." Families gathered to hear the audio projected on the HOA building, popcorn in hand. VY's board collapsed. She sued Amos for slander, strutting into court with a hired lawyer. Amos handed the judge a folder. Burn permits, AFIDA VYTS, Tanya's leaks. The case was tossed. VY's courthouse meltdown yelling at Tanya, Amos, even a squirrel went VY. She vanished, resigning by email, later failing to join another HOA elsewhere. The neighborhood voted in a new charter, banning fear tactics and protecting non-members like us. At the Burn Line barbecue, we turned the fire ring into a pit, projecting Sammy's footage on the barn. A scrap metal SUV sculpture read, "Here lies the last trespass." A woman told Amos her family stayed because of him. "The land feeds your spine," she said. He gave her son a carved horse, and Sammy's drone captured it for history, not clicks. As stars lit the fields, Amos sat with Clara, the wind chime singing again. Sammy asked if it had happened again. I looked at the mended fences, the neighbors laughing like old friends, and said, "Not here. Not while that man's standing." Amos grunted, not angry, but content. The fire had done its work. What do you think? Was Amos a hero or a reckless VY Gilani? Should HOAs have any power over private land? Or are they just legalized bullying? Could you stand your ground like Amos? Or would you bend under pressure? Drop your thoughts below, hit that like button, and subscribe for more stories that spark a fight.